It is a song which has been sung and enjoyed by people of all backgrounds, races, creed, ethnicities, sexes, you name it. Zip-a-dee-doo-dah has been zipping around the world and putting smiles on the faces of so many Disney fans. But now we're here to tell you, officially, it now sounds to us like the song has been banned. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are here on the Pro Channel, and our job is to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve, and when we get the opportunity to do so, we run our own investigations and bring you exclusive news, scoops, and rumors, the types of which you might not hear anywhere else first. Today, we have, continued looking into a situation where it appears that Disney has prevented their musicians in their parks from playing a beloved tune. It's Zip-a-dee-doo-dah, the song that earned a black actor the very first Oscar given to any black actor, at least men, and that's James Baskett. It's a huge win for racial relations and on the betterment of our nation. But that song is no longer allowed, apparently, in Disney parks at all. It's quite the change. Just as recently as 2023, the song was being played. So what has resulted in it being struck, removed, banned from the parks? Well, hang tight and let's bring the panel in. We'll tell you what's going on. Ron Bradley is going to be able to walk us through the situation. Ron Coleman, I think, was on with VR here, but it's Ron Bradley here. And that is, if you're wondering why the Disney parks are doing so poorly, folks, well, wonder no more. We've been covering this for a while now. The Oscar award-winning song Zip-a-dee-doo-dah, which was the first song sung by a black man to win an Academy Award, well, it's been scrubbed by Disney because they don't want it played anymore. It is irrelevant. It is of the past. And we were given the tip that musicians at Disney, live musicians, are no longer allowed to play the song. Well, we decided to start doing some investigating there. And it turns out that we have discovered that, sure enough, it seems like musicians are not allowed to play Zip-a-dee-doo-dah. And so they were coming up with clever ways. We had several sources who tried this, and we found out that none of the musicians would play this song. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, it's Mr. Bluebird's on my shoulder. Everything is satisfactual. Yet they were not allowed to play it. Now, this was featured in the parks as recently as 2023. So it's not like this is just, all of a sudden it's blatantly bad and you can't play it. We've covered in the past that Disney was trying to pressure Tokyo Disneyland to remove this. Now we have confirmation. Ron, take it away. Tell the folks out there what you found out in the past 24 hours about Zip-a-dee-doo-dah.
So of course I have, you and I covered this on the Pro Show, and I asked a musician if he wouldn't mind playing a pianist in front of Casey's Corner, and he said, "Well, I would if I could, but I don't know it." Yeah, not knowing Zip-a-dee-doo-dah for a piano player is probably like not knowing chopsticks. But Dan, who I think is in the chat, Dan's Life with the Kingdom was out there, and he asked the pianist today if the same thing is it possible for you to play Zip-a-dee-doo-dah as a request, and his answer that he received today was it's not on my playlist, so I can't play it. Which is not to say that he was saying that he doesn't know it. He's saying it's not on this playlist, so I can't play it. Well, not on a playlist. How big is the
playlist, Ron? How big is the playlist that the live musicians have? I would say it's gargantuan.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, when I was there the other day, and I did make some requests, they were able to play some stuff from Beauty and the Beast. They have, they most of them know everything. A lot of them know they actually play a lot of non-Disney songs as well. So their playlists are got to be pretty big because it's not just Disney, but it's like 1,000 songs more.
Lorena, can you walk us through the history of Zip-a-dee-doo-dah and whether or not this is an awful, terrible song that we've all just discovered can no longer be played this year, but was recorded by amazing artists, even like Ray Charles, who I consider to be one of the top 2 vocalists of the last century. He proudly recorded this. What changed, Lorena? Why is it such a terrible song now that Disney no longer considers to be on their official live musician playlist?
Well, first of all, let me preface it by saying this. Zip-a-dee-doo-dah I've heard since I was a kid. Just a fun song to sing. My Jim Crow South raised grandparents knew that song, loved that song. The reason the song became problematic is because some folks at Disney corporate decided to be outraged on behalf of people who never freaking asked them to be. And they wanted to find something wrong with Song of the South. And somewhere, I don't know how they made this connection, somehow saying that Zip-a-dee-doo-dah is a racist song and has ties to slavery. No, it never did. It does not. I don't know how that got out there in the ether, but it's ridiculous. There is nothing that's even mentioning slavery in Zip-a-dee-doo-dah. And here's another thing to remember. Song of the South is not set during slavery. Song of the South is set during Reconstruction.
Right. Yeah, I think Pro said he'll be back in just a moment. I think a lot of people don't know that, Lorena, is that everybody thinks these are slaves when they're seeing, you know, Uncle Remus and these stories that came on Song of the South. They're thinking that these are all like slaves being held captive on the plantation. Like, no, this is after Reconstruction, you know? So why do you think people misconstrue like the entire purpose of Song on the South? I absolutely love that movie. I think that is one of Disney's like hidden gems, you know, and a lot of people haven't seen it because, you know, they've hidden it or they don't want anybody to talk about it. And now, of course, Splash Mountain is gone. Like they tried to erase this song. And the thing that really frustrates me is that when you talk about like Br'er Rabbit, you know, and the cultural stories that came over from Africa, like that was absolutely a original story told by Black folks that were carrying these traditions all the way across from Africa, and they've just completely wiped it out. Like, why do people have such a problem with that?
Well, and Br'er Rabbit, by the way, the symbolism in the stories, you know, for example, you know, stories of that era, they always carry some sort of moral to them. So like when you are telling your child about the little red hen who, you know, does the hard work while the other animals play, you're teaching your child about delayed gratification, because children, they don't enjoy instruction manuals. So you can't just hand them a life instruction manual and be like, all right, read this. This is a, you know, this is a long thesis on ethics. That doesn't work with 4-year-olds. So you read them the little red hen, and it embeds the ethic into the story. Then it embeds them into the child, because the child listens to entertainment, and then they role play it out. And by the way, that's how entertainment works for us as well as adults. By the way, Blake Pace down here says, former Main Street pianist here. Zip-a-dee-doo-dah was the second most requested song in my day. Yes, and they can't play it now. I guarantee you it's still a requested song today. Thank you so much for that.
It's such a happy song, too. It's just such a fun song.
Yes.
Just, when you walk through Disneyland, that's what you want. You want fun. And just, it's incredible that they just would ban that, you know, for that reason.
The theme of the whole Disney company, too. I mean, it was like, it was like the theme song of the Disney company for decades.
But the symbolism, the symbolism of Br'er Rabbit, the reason that story exists is Br'er Rabbit is the cunning young man who escapes the slavers. Br'er Bear and Br'er Fox are the bumbling slavers, and Br'er Rabbit escapes with his ingenuity. And when does he not escape? What is it that causes him to get caught? Well, it's that very controversial story where there is a sticky individual portrayed in Splash Mountain as Honey. What is it that causes him to get stuck? It's his own hubris. He demands to have
baby.
Yes, he demands that the sticky character shake his hand and say hello. And because he demands that out of his own ego, that is what catches him. Pride cometh before the fall. And pride before the fall is told through the vision of the Br'er Rabbit character. But it's ultimately a story of outsmarting those who would enslave you otherwise. And Disney can't handle that authentic story brought from Africa here to the United States. It's amazing that modern Disney can't handle that. Amazing.
It's just heartbreaking because Splash Mountain, the original story that was with Br'er Rabbit and, you know, and the Briar Patch. My grandmother not only bought me the Br'er Rabbit stories and actually have them look in my studio. The story that she told The one that they do in Splash Mountain was the one that got my father in trouble in school for what he said at the end. He ad-libbed something. So after he got thrown in the briar patch and he's laughing at, Burr Fox and Burr Bear, he just basically said, "Kiss my rear end. This is where I was born." And that's what my father got in trouble for saying in school. But every time that I would go to visit Splash Mountain, and my grandmother's long gone, I would relive her telling me those stories, my grandfather telling me those stories, the stories that they heard, like with Tar Baby. Again, Br'er Rabbit getting so caught up in his own hubris that he doesn't realize that it's a trap because he's not aware of his surroundings. He's just worried about, thinking that he's offended. But I think the problem is you have people who they're not reading history correctly. And people, again, they still think that the people in the Song of the South were slaves. No, they were sharecroppers. And people, for some reason, don't remember there were white sharecroppers in that movie who were poor, who were living alongside Black folks. And that's what my grandfather told me. He said, places where he lived at, they had white people just as poor as they were. And they all got along together. But for some reason, they think that, that Uncle Remus is subservient to white people. I said, no, this was a time in Reconstruction where the planter class had to relearn how to live along with the class of people who used to be slaves. Now, all of a sudden, are on equal footing with them. There's some relationships that they had during slavery with certain families. They didn't just go away. A lot of them stayed around because they knew that they could trust them, because honestly, they felt they could trust them more than they could Yankees.
Well, and the crazy thing is, Lorena, this is the history that's lost largely. But a lot of the large plantation owners, because they were so ultra wealthy, and they largely, initiated all of this evil across the land, but they didn't suffer in the way that others did. They left the South. They left places like South Carolina and the rest of the slave belt. They left and went to the Northeast with their huge amounts of money and kicked off the Industrial Revolution in the Northeast by starting these giant factories where kids were treated poorly. So they didn't stop. They kept going and treating human beings with absolute disregard because they were filth. They were terrible people. But that's not what Disney was trying to portray. Disney was trying to portray the folks of every race and ethnicity who had a very hard time during that period. You're talking about people of every race and background, and I'm not trying to rank category people, and what level of difficulty they had, but I'm simply saying that there were a lot of people of all different colors who had newspapers for wallpaper and they had dirt floors, and they had to find a way to survive. And so I think the fact that Disney did something that caused the entire country at a time when this was not popular to go watch a black man be the sage, the man of wisdom, teaching children of all races, and that it won an Academy Award, and it was, at the time, I believe it was the 7th most popular film of all time at the box office when it released. That's a huge accolade for Disney and for everybody involved. And James Baskett, of course, we were told, and this was one of the saddest things, we had the opportunity to interview on this channel Valerie Stewart right before she passed away. She was the daughter of Nick Stewart, who's the voice of Br'er Bear, and she told us the full story behind the scenes of Song of the South. She was really the last person who could tell that to us. And she said that James Baskett passed away with a broken heart because of the way that the world would later treat Song of the South. And so the best way we can remedy that is we remember with fondness these people who did such a wonderful act of bringing our nation together and bringing people who would otherwise have no reason to hate each other together by dissolving some of those racial tensions. So we are indebted to James Baskett and the others, truly. And folks, we have come to the end. Mr. Bluebird is on our shoulder. This video, it was actual and it was satisfactual. We hope you agree. Consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. And folks, if you would not mind, have some time, go on over to Vacation Radio. Link is in the video description down below. It's our first forte into original streaming content. All right, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.